You don't know what ghetto style means right now. I guess I'm just going to break it down for you.
Oh my goodness! What's the procedure? Okay, we're trapped. Everyone for himself. Okay, here we go. Let's go. Get out of my way.
That was fresh.
Jeremy, you got no phone or computer dying this time, right?
Nope, none of those things are happening this time. I don't think. But you know,
we're fully functional.
What's both your koozie choice and your drink choice tonight, Jeremy?
it's the most American I can get. I have a Yingling Lager and a Camo Buckeye Power Systems. Not a sponsor.
Dude, I have a camo koozie too.
So
Trapper John's canoe livery. I'm not using it right now.
David's going whiskey.
Yeah,
I'm going whiskey.
Very basic whiskey. Jack Daniel's, very basic.
such a basic white boy.
What am I? I'm High Banks Distillery here in Columbus.
Desperate times, guys. We're in quarantine. Desperate times.
I thought about trying to make my own, actually. Maybe I'll get the stuff and do that.
Buy a bunch of corn, put it in the bathtub. We're good to go.
What else use a bathtub tour? You're not going anywhere, so why not?
You don't need to take a shower. That's for dang sure.
Don't need a shower, don't need to shave, don't need to put on deodorant.
I feel like making liquor, is that easier or harder than making beer?
Well,
I feel like it'd be easier.
It's kind of
right?
legal.
I think it'd be easier.
Yeah. You just probably got to give it more time, right?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's easier because you don't have to carbonate anything. You don't you don't have all the mash going on as much. Like with beer, you have like the mash set up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Andrew can make beer, as we talked about last episode, and I'll figure out how to make
Well, we still don't know about
the other
that,
stuff.
but
And then we'll see who does better and see which one's easier.
It's true.
All right.
So we are recording this on Easter Day, Easter evening.
Yep.
Which was
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, yeah. He's
Happy Resurrection Day.
Late to all the people hearing.
Yeah, late to all the people hearing. Because Andrew, it should be Easter every day.
Yes.
Every Sunday is a mini Easter.
This is a pet. Well, not. I was going to call it a pet peeve. It's more like a soapbox, I guess you would call it for me.
Get off your soapbox.
No, this is if podcasts are for anything, it's for standing on your soapbox like this.
Because no one can say anything.
Basically, why they're there.
Oh, by the way, I'm David.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Jeremy.
Yes, we are quarantined. We remembered to identify ourselves earlier in the episode this time.
Yes, we did.
Maybe by the end of this quarantine, we'll be bored enough to figure out making a video version of our podcast. I don't know if we want that or not. I don't know if the people want that.
I kind of like the not having it. It's kind of nice because then we have to stay on our toes. Like, are we going to intro or not?
Wouldn't it be pretty easy to do like a split screen?
Yeah, it'd be easy for you because I'd probably be the one doing it.
That's why it'd be super easy for us.
I'm just saying, we're doing it. We're doing it right now. We just got to figure out how to record it. And
I think if we used a different platform for chatting, we could record it pretty easily.
But I mean, our Google Hangout and iPhone voice memo is not the most high-tech solution.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, that's true. The audio would be way different. Anyway, it is Easter, and the official podcast position on Peeps. What is it? We got to have
negative.
What, Ange?
Garbage.
They're not garbage, but I don't choose to eat. I'll eat them if they're there, but I prefer that if they have to eat them, frozen's the best way to eat them, but I still would not choose to buy them.
See, I really like marshmallows and marshmallow flavored things. Like when I was a kid, I would get a marshmallow sundae instead of like a hot fudge sundae most of the time, or both, if you're feeling crazy. And if your mom says you're allowed to, right?
Don't splurge.
Now I'm an adult. I can get a marshmallow sundae whenever I want, right? Living large.
Just go get one.
Well, not right now.
No, I can still do it now.
I guess, you can do it now. Drive-thrus are open.
My wife and I potentially broke the law by getting Dairy Queen and then eating it in their outdoor picnic table area. We didn't even think about the fact that, we could have got booked for that. Who knows? But Peeps, even though they're marshmallows, they're not as good as other marshmallow flavored thing. So I'd err on the side of negative. Now, if they're covered in chocolate, then we got a winner.
Okay, so wait, what's the best Easter candy?
Reese's eggs.
Yeah,
I was gonna say Reese's eggs.
that's definitely the best.
And the Starburst jelly beans.
That was where I was gonna go.
Okay,
Yeah.
time out. I have a new one for that. Faith introduced me to the Sour Patch Kids jelly beans.
Oh,
And they're also delicious.
I've never had those.
I need to
think
get
they
some
are
of
better
those
than
tomorrow.
I had neither. They're better than
You
Starburst.
take that. They are not better.
My
Take
wife
that
was
back.
right. My wife was right.
Until I have them, I will not accept that.
I'll get you some,
But
bro.
If you're coming at me with an Easter basket with regular jelly beans, no.
Just get that crap out.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Like, Starburst jelly beans literally took that concept and
Just
made
nailed
it
it.
10 times better.
That's true.
Yeah, the Starburst jelly beans are a strong contender. I also like. I'm not a Cadbury cream egg guy,
They're
but
good.
I like
but
the small Cadbury cream eggs. That
Yeah.
like just they're basically like big M&Ms with that really good candy shell on them. I like those a lot. The Robin's egg things, I could eat far too many of those, but I think that
What
it
about
has to
the
be
big-
Reese's eggs.
What about
is
the
the
big
best.
bunnies? Like everyone gets big bunnies.
It's always bad chocolate.
I
Like,
never
it's
eat
al-
them.
The chocolate's never that good.
The chocolate
Yeah.
is like 80% plastic because it
Or
has
hollow.
to be to keep more hollow, which is just a disappointment.
Yeah.
Just like I was gonna say, just like life, 80% hollow. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, this episode when quarantine's
Wow.
messing with David over here.
Quarantine
it'll
out
be
for Dave's
okay.
quarantine update.
Quarantine's got me down, guys. You know
Yeah.
David, it's Easter. It's happy days.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because it brought me back to the soapbox, which is
Yeah,
where I
yeah,
was
we
Completely
started.
jumped.
David-
You literally you initiated the soapbox and then immediately jumped off of it.
Oh,
That's
I'm
why
always-
I keep things moving. I'm professional here.
Yes,
I
if
have
any-
a notepad to make sure we hit all of our points.
If anyone's professional on this podcast, it's Jeremy. We know that.
We all know that. His computer's
If
died
anyone-
like 3 times
Yeah.
mid recording.
If anyone is disciplined in covering topics, it's Jeremy. We know that.
Hey,
Hey.
I'm Mr. Discipline. I'm basically Jocko Willick over here.
He's basically Jocko. Did you say Willick?
Willick.
It's Willink.
My bad. I
No.
said it wrong.
He would put you in a chokehold for saying
He
that.
probably would. I'm not disciplined enough for the N.
All right,
It's
Dave.
true.
Soapbox.
Soapbox is that we as Christians today, I think because we have it so good all the time, we think very little of death, we think very little of dying, and we think very little of the resurrection and heaven.
Mhm.
And I think we don't sing about heaven like other generations did. Like when you're a Puritan, when you're 16th century, when you're 17th, even the 18th century, you barely have medicine for like the cold. Like you think about eternity a lot
Mhm.
because you're confronted with it more.
Yeah.
And you think about physical death.
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
isn't as good. And so you are ready to think about that. You're ready to worship God and look forward to that. Like our church is called Maranatha, which means come Lord. And it's just not something we think about more. And I
Or
don't
not
think,
actually happening.
yeah, like the reality that our faith, yes, it matters for the present, but our faith is also past based and future based. It
Mhm.
looks back to a specific event and it looks ahead to a specific event.
Yeah.
And if we really think about heaven, if we really think about justice coming and Christ returning, we live in such a different way. And whenever coronavirus happens and stuff, we are not as easily swayed.
Yeah.
I think that these situations show us how temporal we can be in our hearts
Yeah.
and minds.
Or her we're looking to fix the situation, going for a fix of the situation. It's like
Yeah.
maybe there's not a fix. Like part of this
Yeah.
whole life. There's a good podcast that a friend of ours told us about. Theology Pugcast had an episode on Christians throughout history with the plagues.
Yeah.
And the stance, and I had a discussion with a few people. Jared and I talked about this at length a few times. But how like
We
Christians
should
are
start
still
taking
called,
a drink every time we mention his name on this podcast.
We should. He's the man. But he's the unofficial person on the podcast.
Yeah, he's the fourth host that never says a
But-
word.
We were talking about how Christians like throughout history like would still like, and even now we're called to love our neighbors and what that looks like, because like many Christians in history like, well, like either I die by the sword or I die by a plague.
Yeah.
And that was just their reality.
Whereas we're like, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm gonna die? I'll just stay in my house forever.
But it's exciting, especially because we sit there and say that. Or the other part, like Colossians, where he talks about how I've already died. So from that standpoint, we also have to look forward to the heaven. Yeah. And the fact that we've already died. Like, no longer Jeremy Appelt lives, but Christ who lives in me.
Yeah, Galatians 2,
and me saying that can seem hollow, but on days like today, it's like, this is what proves our entire faith.
Yeah. We're based in resurrection, man. Like, we are children of the resurrection. And again, like me saying what I said just about, like, this shows how temporal we can be. This doesn't mean that if you feel any fear about anything, or if you're like staying in more and really avoiding contact, you're wearing a mask, whatever. This isn't like condemning those things. But I think we all know the difference between doing things wisely with a positive, strong heart versus doing things wisely with a fearful, negative, scared heart. And I just think we have to examine ourselves a little bit. Like, am I scared? Am I fearful more than I ought to be? Do I believe like that the resurrection's real and I'm gonna experience that one day? And do I believe that enough for my joy in the present to be transformed? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
and like knowing, like, are you resting in the fact that God's promises are not changed or altered in any way by coronavirus?
Nope. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, His power, the same power that raised Christ from the dead, dwells within us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like we said last episode too, like this is, you'll never have a better opportunity to dive in, to read out and like examine those promises, and a better opportunity to disciple your family and your household right now. So like, and that's like just a big point of like, this can be a great time to flesh out idols in your life, and to refocus on shepherding and discipling your family if you're the man, if you're the head of your household, really getting that back into focus.
And no matter who you are in your household, like this is a time to do that. It actually, that's a perfect transition because we weren't supposed to talk about everything we just talked about. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that this whole thing has taught me is, I'll back up for a second. This whole episode is supposed to be about being disciplined with our time. Mm-hmm. And this idea of discipline with our time, because we are all in a situation right now where time is both like it becomes so blurred together because we're not out doing as many things. Our time, if we're honest, is often, it's really like put together in terms of between activities. Like we're always going to activities and doing activities. And one thing that I've learned with this is that I am not as disciplined in leading and building our home and our family as I ought to be.
I get that.
And it's easy for me because Rachel and I don't have kids yet. So it's easy for people without kids, I think, to live as two single people who room together. Instead of like carrying as though we already have a family. And some of the best advice I've ever been given about marriage is even before you have kids, you are a family. And you need to care about that and shepherd that family before you have kids in the mix. And what I've discovered is I have not been disciplined with my time because it is easy for me to neglect things at home in terms of ministry outside the home. Mm-hmm. And ministry in the home has got to be first. And that's something that I have not been disciplined to do. And I guess God has confronted me a little bit with that. He has very graciously pointed out to Rachel and I just like areas in our marriage where we're like, hey, we can like grow in this area. We we're 2.5 years into marriage, so. And so obviously there's areas to grow, because you've only been married 2.5 years. And we're both just like, hey, don't we want to get closer in this way? Don't we want to get stronger in that way? And I don't think that those are areas that we'll grow in without more disciplined focus on how to grow more unified and more loving as a couple. Mm-hmm. And so this whole thing has been a wake-up call because there's been less clutter and activities in our lives to distract from that lack of family immediate discipline.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed anything like that?
I don't know. I get that. That's something that even lately I've been sitting there and thinking, man, a lot of areas to grow. But also encouraging faith in her gifts and also being more gracious, I think, overall. Especially right now, like, I don't know. So Faith is pregnant and so she's not going out very many places because we also have a toddler. But sitting there saying, man, like, I need to be much more when I get home from work. Loving to say, hey, like, making sure dinner and stuff is easier to do or cleaning up around the house or because she's stressed and tired. And also, like, she does have the help that other people have because her mom her grandma lives with them who's in her 90s. So, like, she hasn't seen her mom. So, like, today was on the way home. It was tough. Like, so they're saying we're not going to see her parents today. So like those kind of things. We're also encouraging her to do FaceTime or she started a Bible study with like her mom, trying to do that. But also I know I have a ton of areas to grow as far as my ability to communicate and love her now. And also being more understanding with that and helpful, I think.
Raise your hand if you have tons of areas to grow in loving your wife. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's where, I think it hits home too, just with like the responsibility. Like we still have this is a big opportunity because the responsibility to shepherd and disciple your household is so much greater now because all of us have access to like the content from our, most likely your churches are, putting your sermons out or whatever. But yeah, those are easily able to just be listened to and moved on from. And if you truly want to be tuned in and mindful of where like your spouse is at during this time and how she's dealing with being cooped up in the house, that only happens with being, with getting to another level of being open and communicating, and taking those sermons and stuff that you might be listening to and actually discussing, and you as the man, like in my perspective, trying to be a more active role in shepherding my wife, has become ever more, evident to me that like God's kind of using this opportunity to be like, hey, you these are areas that you need to grow into, because, like our pastor is a great pastor, and yes, he's still doing as much as he can to shepherd. But yet I need to be in that role as well for my household. Yeah.
The other question we got to ask is, do you guys feel like it's been easy for you to fritter's an interesting word for that. It just seems like the best word.
Think the apple fritters.
Exactly. I do love those. That's a sleeper for me. When I go to Tim Hortons, the apple fritter, that's a sleeper. A sleeper donut. It's good. No. Anyway. Is it easy for you to like lose track of time and all this? Do you feel like how do you feel like the balance is between getting things done, being intentional with time versus just watching more Netflix?
Andrew, I'll let you answer that since my life hasn't changed at all.
We haven't really been, like at least for me, my work, I'm still employed full time. Nothing has really changed except that we are fully working from home. So I have my setup in our basement, and Kaylee, at least through the days, is largely the one, facilitating Lincoln, keeping him occupied, keeping him active, and all that. And they're kind of upstairs running around. But I would say, so it's not big on just like, getting sucked into streaming Netflix all day, because like I still, work, like work does need to get done on my end. And we, like taxes still need to happen for a big corporation.
The
like
government will always be taking taxes.
Yeah,
You can know
you can
life
bet
and
on
death
that.
and taxes.
the problem that I'm seeing, and something I need to be mindful of as this continues, we're pretty much for the next month still going to be probably in this circumstance.
Yeah.
So I need to be mindful that I'm not overworking at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier when I'm in the destination of going to the office and I'm more aware of the time versus, I know Kaylee's got Lincoln handled upstairs and I can press myself to, put in the additional hours and I can just get sucked into my work. And really, like I was talking to you guys, like there's really no difference at this point because we're at home of it bleeding into a Saturday and a Sunday and things getting done 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I need to be mindful that I'm not just working for the sake of that there's nothing else to do, and end up putting in, 70 to 80 hours a week just because I can.
Yeah. I definitely have felt some of my job has just the way our company works and stuff. Some of our job has naturally necessarily become a little more extended into the evenings, just the type of work that we do, the way that at-home works, the way that at-home work works, it needs a little more after hours than it did, but it also, that also means with that, it's come a little more like throughout the day, it presses pause for a little bit and then it picks back up later. And so hours wise, it's the same, if not a little bit more work, but it's definitely easy to, whenever you're at home all the time, it's been a little easier for me to like Saturday afternoon when I normally wouldn't pick something up and work on it to just be like, oh, I'll just work on it now. Yeah. And plenty of times I've done that. And then plenty of other times I've been sensitive, thankfully, to the fact of like, well, my wife's home. So if I was home by myself, maybe I'd do this work right now. But my wife's home. So let me like try to talk to her because I'm just doing this out of boredom. There's not a need to do it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think we've had.
Well, and especially for me, it's like my wife is also pregnant and we have an active 1.5-year-old that's running around all day.
Very active.
Yeah. And like my kid does not stop.
Andrew has an uber active 1.5-year-old.
Yeah. Like he wants to literally be on the move at all times. So like I'm definitely realizing that like in work, yes, it's important. And yes, I need to, put in effort there. But yet like during this time, I also need to prioritize that like my wife is not just being drained through the days and, it's tough on her while she's pregnant to put in 8 hours on Lincoln duty and be chasing him around and stuff. So, and if I can easily just the time can get sucked away and I'm down in the basement and just cranking stuff out, and not even skip a beat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy's got like a kid's show or something playing in the background.
One of the cats is standing on one of Micah's toys and is going off, and the cat's like freaking out. Like, what is that noise coming from?
Get that cat out of here, Jeremy. This is a recording environment.
This is a professional environment.
Yeah, I mean, even
Jeremy
at that,
just threw a blanket at his cat to move it out of the way. Smart.
Part of the reason why we don't struggle just to kind of like waste time away is that it's probably a testament to Lincoln because he's so active.
Yeah.
That like he's always wanting to be moving. So like me and Kaylee can't just Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
Until, really it would get to like, we couldn't even start that until like 8:30. After we get him down.
Yeah.
And then at that point, we're just exhausted from the day and we want to be ready for the next day. So we got to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that.
Yeah.
We're doing tonight was the last like birthing class we're doing on Sunday nights, which went to online. And they have like these like script things to like help with relaxing and all that stuff. So I fell asleep during the birthing thing today, the little script she's reading, and I started snoring.
There you go. I guess it works.
I woke Faith up, who I guess fell asleep during the script as well.
There you
go.
go.
The other day, I was having issues sleeping, as a side note, and I started using one of those things to listen to, and I fell asleep. So there you go.
Jeremy is a pregnant woman.
Hey.
Hey,
whatever gets you to fall asleep at night, I guess.
Congratulations. Sam.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've been prioritizing more with everything is trying to get adequate rest.
Yeah.
Which is hard right now because Mike is kind of going through an awkward time as far as developmentally. So just like sleep, like Ader said, just sleeping growing up, it's like we need to get rest, or I need to get rest.
Yeah.
And also prioritizing my pregnant wife getting rest. So, but not also prioritizing like stuff that, like you said, stuff needs done. We also need to spend time as a family together and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's like, whether you're in quarantine or not, those are all still the same issues we have on a daily basis. It's just different.
Yeah.
I think that I definitely got woken up a little bit with all this of like how I was not resting properly.
Yeah.
At least not effectively. And I wasn't doing it. I wasn't making sure that that Rachel and I got to do that together and that we were both doing it individually as well. I just like, I'm a person that always thinks in terms of producing and going and doing most of the time. And it's a reminder to me of like that routinely leaves me burnt out and tired. I'll work really hard for a few months and then I'll be really exhausted for a few weeks. Right. And then it just goes over and over again. And this whole thing has shown me and like, it sounds really weird, but just the rewarding nature of getting things done. Like we have this house that we bought last year and actually getting things done around our house and how that's a good thing to do and a good way to spend
like
time
doing it in a cyclical pattern versus in spurts.
And we do it together. We do these projects together. So we get to talk as we do them and we get to work together and you get to work with your hands and everything. And there's something rewarding about that. And also just like resting, like knowing as you start each week, knowing, all right, where am I going to rest this week? And how am I going to make time to actually do it instead of just like do it if I get around to it? Similar to reading scripture or similar to like discipling our family. We can't go into it thinking like, oh, I'll just get around to doing that this week because that's not discipline. Discipline means having a purpose and a plan and sticking to it. And if we're going to lead families, if we're going to have a family that's healthy, whether or not we're the leader of that family, if we want to be healthy, and if we want to have families that are healthy, we have to be disciplined and be purposeful with our time, which means productive time and rest time and enjoyment time and all that stuff in between. So,
yeah. Well, like and that's where you have a great opportunity if you seize it right now to, like learn to better yourself, to pursue your faith, even more.
Yeah.
Like all those things. And you have a better opportunity too, to learn like how, me and Jeremy are kind of hitting on too, like learn how, when I can, how can I best like serve my wife, or how is like the time that I can give her, how can I maximize my service to her, and what would she appreciate the most? Like, what have I done in the past that like really, it can kind of, isn't of that much importance, but how can I value her time more in this time? And, you really can get that when you're in the household together that maybe before that you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also like right now, one of the things that like with life right now in quarantine, especially for my wife who's expecting, going to the store, something like that. So we sprang and changed our budget so we could put in like a home chef kind of thing. But even that, like, while that's a slightly more expensive thing, and as far as my thought goes, like, oh man, if it's more expensive, we don't need it. We can buckle down. But I'm like, but also we were like, it's just like, it makes her life and even the evenings more enjoyable because it's less cleanup time, it's less prep time. And all the fine ingredients, less time in the kitchen. So like we get to enjoy more time. So granted, not doing that like for all 5 meals, but like at least 3 days out of the week or 2 days out of the week. It's like, man, this has been ways that we can, and it's also building into my wife more than the other thing would be building into potentially like financially, which wouldn't be that much of a difference, but also thinking through like that way of our lives.
Where, like, that's where she would value that so much more. Yeah.
Right.
It's easy to, Yeah, that's just this little, really subtle way that we can think about, like our priority is often like, well, what's the money say? All right, the money says this, it's not worth it. Like, but the priorities we have are not always the most important ones. And yeah. And so instead, learning to value, your wife's priorities and what she needs and how she can grow and how your whole family can be better off, even if, your priorities aren't met exactly how you want them to be. Yeah.
Well, and your priorities might have to change.
Yeah, and your priorities might have changed because, newsflash, I know that I've realized this in several ways about myself the last few weeks. Your priorities just aren't always right. Like, and even if they're good, that doesn't mean they're exactly what your family needs right now. Like maybe they were single priorities, but they're not family priorities.
Yeah.
And
or not this time priorities.
And that means that maybe right now those need to be put on the back burner.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes leadership in the home, like, isn't just ramming your priorities through. Sometimes leadership is sacrificing some of your priorities because you see that it's better for everybody else. So, yeah. Guys, we did a really good job deconstructing this this quarantine that we're in, which is a term that I just really don't like. But it's all the rage right now to talk about deconstruction. You got deconstructions of people's faith. You've got deconstructions of headlines, whatever. Deconstructions are just a fancy word for like removing all the actual quality of something, especially when people talk about their faith. Like I recently went through a time where I really deconstructed my faith, to get at the bones of what's really there. And it's like, no, what you really did was you stopped having faith. Like, that's really what you did.
I feel like at least we would probably use the word like reconstruction before. Now it's just like everything's like a deconstruction mindset.
It is. Some would say
we used to try to reinforce things before, or even like try to rebuild things before. Now it's like, no, we're going to strip it all down.
Some might say that's a tenet of postmodernism. And those people would be right for saying that.
Yes, it would.
Because, yeah, it is definitely a deconstructionist thing. But I don't know. You guys got any more disciplined thoughts for us, or just undisciplined ones?
I realize I really like painting things again, painting walls and rooms. Like, you can knock that thing out and you just kind of listen to music and go.
Jeremy's getting back to square one.
I know, that was my first job. I didn't mind it. I don't mind it, especially outdoor painting. We're going to do the trim around the house soon, probably this summer. So, like, I could knock that out in a day.
Man, I'm busy this summer. That's a bummer.
It's just, all summer. No, it's not bad. Especially our house is only one story, so it's not that bad.
Jeremy, I got a back deck that could use.
No, dude, staining deck sucks. That's a whole other thing.
Jeremy's love of painting only extends so far, and it stops
staining
at the back
is
deck.
not the same.
Yeah. He's gonna paint his deck, right, Ange?
I've painted every room in the house at this point. Every room's a new color.
We're probably gonna restain it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys use solid stain or semi-transparent
It needs
thing?
a stain and seal.
This is where our podcast can shine, is really getting into the
home improvement,
paint and staining realm.
Yeah.
Three Brothers Painting, 3BP.
Man, we have a whole empire here.
I'd rather invest in koozies and home brewing than the paint game, if I'm just being honest.
Well, you're missing out on a whole other market share. Dave, you need a side hustle. It's 2020. You need at least 30 side hustles.
Let's get another side hustle going for the podcast.
I'm going to get into painting, brewing, koozie making,
and the XFL.
Furniture building, XFL.
And the XFL.
A new football league that we're starting.
Jeremy's going to bring it back.
Yep.
Going to bring it all back, man.
Hey, if our podcast hits it big, the first thing we're spending money on is a new football league.
Is a new XFL.
I was going to say an XFL team.
Yeah.
Get Cardale Jones back out there.
Why stop at a team? We got the whole league.
We could start a league.
Our own league.
I'll call Oliver Luck. We'll call it a day.
Call him up. We'll poach him.
Him and Vince.
Well, we're not doing it with them. We're starting our own league.
No, I'm going to get their ideas and make it better.
I think we already know their ideas.
Yeah.
It didn't work twice, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if it's good ideas. We need new ideas.
You mean the $100,000 per winning game isn't the best idea, and so that hasn't worked twice?
But it was smart whenever they were no longer allowed to have games. It was a pretty smart call.
the way to
then-
save money right there. We just
Exactly.
tell everyone to go home.
Can't be forced to give out $100,000 for a game if there's no game.
No one plays.
Thinking ahead. You guys got any recos? Any recommendations here for people? More quarantine recs?
I have been trying to FaceTime or connect with people more often, or even phone calls, especially with grandparents and stuff. So that's, I don't know if we've done that one or not on this pod.
I think we have. It all blends
But,
together, just like the quarantine.
Just like the quarantine, but also I think we just get our Three Seasons room painted, so I'm really excited to be able to just sit there at night. So like sit next, just like listen to, if you like take walks around parks or something because they're still open, listen to nature, listen to birds, and be like, man, this is what, look at God's creation. Because that's what can help us. Like, well, that's what Jesus says in his sermon. Look at the birds. So during this whole thing, just look at the birds.
Actually do that.
Like actually do that. Not just you have some nice little verse in the back of your head. Like actually look at the birds and say, man, they're going to get fed tonight. So I can trust that I'll get fed tonight.
Yeah.
And me saying that is someone who still struggles with that. So
Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about that just the other day. Myself, I was talking with Rachel about that, but the other recommendation I would give if you're looking for something to read right now is the book The Revenant. I finished it today, and it's very good. If you like the movie, the movie's pretty good. The movie's graphic, so it's a pretty violent like story and everything. So if that there's some content. Some content. But so be aware of that if you're going to watch the movie. I'll say that in the book, your content is just violent things. So this just so that everybody's aware.
Movie.
But anyway, the book is really good. I read it in like a week and a half. I think it's a really easy read. It's a really fun read in some ways. I thought it was a good book. So highly recommend it.
That, David, as a Christian person, not saying that the road is bad, but also Cliff Graham's books, rereading one of those, and they're still good the second time through.
Yeah. Well, you actually recommended that in one of our last recent episodes. So
I know, I've reread his book like twice, I think.
I have to DQ that recommendation because you've given it too frequently.
But now it's quarantine, so it's a whole new thing. We can't go get new books because Amazon's only delivering essentials.
It's true. Yeah. So those are some recommendations.
Andrew, you got any?
Yeah. Ange used one last time. I don't know if we'll have another one.
So it's good for at least 2 eps.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did another episode, boys, and I think we recorded the whole way through. We remembered to introduce ourselves. We remembered to introduce the podcast. We actually accomplished all the necessary parts of a podcast, which is a first in some ways. I think the quarantine is really honing our skills. And
I feel honed, totally honed.
And I think it's also enabling us to talk about a wider array of things, I guess, and hopefully people like that. So give us your opinion on the things we talk about, and we want to hear what you want us to talk about. So share and subscribe to the podcast. If you know people that are just desperately bored right now, give them our podcast. If they have 20 rooms to paint in their house and they're just dying for something to listen to that is slightly less annoying than nails on chalkboard, we can be that. That's what we're here to do. But beyond that, we don't know what else we can offer. So with that, we will sign off, I guess. We did it, and we'll be back soon with another episode. And until next time, we'll see you next time.